Number one is setting realistic expectations, starting where you are at, not where you think you should be. Number two, identifying how you'll get there, aka breaking down barriers. 3, go slow and give yourself grace. Reduce or eliminate that all or nothing mentality. And number 4, utilize support, professional, interpersonal, whatever that is. You don't have to do it alone. Welcome to 2026, friends, my first podcast of the new year. I am so happy that you are here. Today, we're going to be diving into my realistic strategies that actually work for your New Year's intentions, resolutions, goals, whatever you want to call them. And this was a kind of spur of the moment podcast episode. I wasn't intending to record a podcast episode about this. And I, thought it was timely, and I want to put my own unique spin on the typical podcast you're going to hear, the typical information out there about how to keep your New Year's resolutions or how to make them actually stick this year. And I'm going to be speaking directly to the woman who, maybe wants to come off birth control this year, maybe wants to just improve her hormone balance in general, wants to clear her skin, have more energy, have better periods. And also, maybe you're someone who isn't someone who sets New Year's goals or intentions or resolutions. Maybe that makes you cringe. But if you press play anyways, this is a really good episode just for a little pep talk of how to make sustainable changes in your life, because health is an ever evolving journey. It is not stagnant. It is not a one size fits all. It is linear. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be high highs, there's going to be low lows. And I've been there myself, and I've been very open this past year about my own hormone healing journey, not only in starting my business when I was at my lowest of my lows and learned how to turn it all around through functional lab testing, root cause nutrition, but also through my experience this past year with getting to a point where I had consistently clear skin, and then starting a new product, retinol, and it completely damaging my skin barrier and causing, a lot of horrific breakouts for several months and having to heal from that. And this has really translated well for me into my work with clients, because I get it. And the goal with health isn't perfection. The goal with New Year's resolutions isn't perfection. The goal is to make sustainable, realistic changes that feel good, that nourish your body, and that you're going to be able to carry with you throughout the rest of your life, through the high highs and through the low lows. So this episode really is less about, trendy, how to keep your New Year's resolutions. And it's honestly more about how to create those sustainable changes for lasting health. So I'm glad that you're here. And again, I'm going to put my unique spin on this, regardless of where you're at in your hormone healing journey or birth control journey. This is a perfect episode for any woman at any stage in her healing journey in her life. And I think that's all I have to say. Let's dive in. So the first strategy, I think I'm going to be using that word a lot today. The first strategy, or tip rather, that I have is to start where you're at and be realistic. I also think I'm going to be using that word a lot today. Be realistic. Start where you're at, not where you think you should be. This is a big mistake that I see so many people, men and women, making, especially in January, when everyone, there's just so much talk about losing weight or, doing the healthier habit, like whatever that is for you. But we have to remember that it's not going to be an overnight journey, right? Like, things aren't just going to fix themselves overnight. There's a reason why it's been challenging for you to do whatever goal you have. And so I just want to reassure you that, for example, like hormone balance, it doesn't require extremes or perfection. It requires realistic strategies. So a lot of New Year's resolutions fail, or goals fail in general, because women often set goals based on an idealized version of themselves, where they think they should be what they should be, rather than acknowledging their current stress load, energy levels, and capacity. So for example, if let's use an exercise example here, actually. I had a breakfast example, but I'm going to use an exercise example instead. If you're someone who you really want to incorporate more movement into your life, but you're freaking tired all the time, right? Like maybe you're in a stressful season of life. You just got done with the holidays. There are hidden imbalances in your body that either we've identified together or that you want support identifying and addressing that are making you so tired. Maybe you have little kids and you're not getting quality sleep. Whatever the case is, if your goal is to exercise more, we want to be realistic with that and not just say, like, oh, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. every single day and exercise and go to the gym. Because that's not taking into account what's realistic for you. If you're going from 0 days of exercise to wanting to do it 7 days a week, one, that's extreme. I wouldn't recommend anyone exercising 7 days a week. Two, that is setting you up for failure because you're not taking into account all of those things, all of those barriers. And that's also not going to feel good. That's going to be a really harsh shift for your body, for your hormones. So instead of saying, I'm going to go from 0 to 60, or in this case, 0 days to 7 days, what's realistic for you? Look at your schedule, look at your energy. Maybe it's saying, I'm going to incorporate 3 days of 30 minutes of walking per day, because that can be something sustainable and something that's realistic for your capacity right now. Maybe it is, you're going to incorporate one gym day a week because it's really hard for you to get to the gym with your schedule. I was talking with a client about this recently where she's like, I am not doing any structured exercise, but I really, really want to. I know it's so good for my hormones, my mental health, etc. And I asked, well, what's the barrier to that? And she was like, I just need to do it. And we'll get to this in a second, but I hate the Nike just do it because that's not working. Obviously, if someone just needed to do it, okay, maybe 1% of people that's gonna work. But for the majority of people, that's just gonna result in them not doing it and then guilt for not doing it, which then further exacerbates that shame response and further exacerbates not actually doing that goal. So setting realistic expectations, because you can always build from there. So I can't tell you how many times I'm talking with clients in sessions about goals. And, if someone might say, I want to incorporate more movement, I'm going to go to Pilates 5 days a week. And I'm like, if you're going from 0 to 5, is that realistic for you? And a lot of times I'll encourage them to actually back that down to avoid that disappointment and to avoid feeling like they failed. Because we can always excel. We can always, shoot for an A, but then get an A+. We can always shoot for 3 days, which we know we can make, and then go 5 if we have extra energy or if we really like it or if we figure out a way to make that work. So it sounds counterintuitive because you think of a coach being like, oh, I'm going to push you to do more. But a lot of times my version of coaching is I'm actually telling women, let's start a little bit slower. Let's start a little bit lower on the totem pole because I want to make this so that it's sustainable and that it feels good. One, physically, but then mentally, emotionally. So if you have this urge, and a lot of this comes from the pressure around New Year's resolutions of get the gym membership, start the meal planning service, start eating breakfast every single day if you're not, just this all or nothing mentality in the United States. And just I think a lot of countries in general, it's just this all or nothing mentality. And that's going to set you up for failure, like I said. So start with where you're at. Go low and slow with this. This is if you think of the tortoise and the hare, be the tortoise. Don't be the hare and tire yourself out and crash, because that's the biggest mistake people make. Be the tortoise and go slow and be realistic, because that's actually what's going to create sustainable change. It's going to feel so much better for you. I promise you. It's going to feel so much better. The second tip I have is identify the barriers. So don't just think, okay, this is where I want to go, but think about how am I going to get there? This is something, it was so funny. I was talking with a colleague of mine, and we were just talking about our business goals for the new year. And I was just telling her, these are my business goals. And she was like, that's cool. How are you going to make that happen? And I was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. I know I can make it happen, but I was like, you kind of put me in my place there. I didn't really think about that. So think about how you're going to make these things happen. It's great to have lofty goals, and I want you to have goals that kind of are stretchy for you. That's where I'm going to push you a little bit. And to get to that goal, we want to identify the barriers that are preventing you from getting there to begin with. So I bet a lot of these goals that you have, a lot of these intentions you have are not new. Maybe some of them are, or maybe they are, but I bet a lot of them are things that you feel you've tried doing before and that just don't stick, which is even more of a reason to take this advice and implement it, right? Because there's a reason that New Year's resolutions don't stick, because people go too hard too fast. They set unrealistic expectations. They have the all or nothing mentality, and they just crash and burn. So identifying how you'll get there is really, really important. And the first step with this is identifying the barriers that have prevented you from getting there before. So this is where the I just need to do it trap comes in. And if knowledge alone worked, women wouldn't be struggling with getting to their goals. So I just need to go to the gym. I just need to wake up and go to the gym and make it happen. Well, why did that not work before? Well, I'm just not a morning person. I have trouble sleeping. I am exhausted as is. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So maybe it's not a matter of we need to just do it, because there are true, real barriers that are preventing us from just doing it. Maybe we need to get flexible, and maybe we need to get creative with how we do that. So if we are not a morning person, that's going to be a pretty lofty goal to get yourself up at 5 or 6 a.m. and go to the gym, right? Especially if you're in the Midwest and it's cold and it's dark in the morning. That's just, I don't think that's going to work for the long term. So instead, if we've identified those barriers, I'm not a morning person, for example, can we find a different time in your day to incorporate movement? And maybe that starts as we don't have time to go to the gym, right? Like if the only time that you have 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever to get yourself to the gym, do your workout, come back, change, and have enough time is in the morning, then again, let's start slower. Maybe it's taking a walk on your lunch break. Maybe it's bringing a yoga mat to your office and doing like a 20-minute yoga flow or stretch or some body weight workouts in your office from YouTube. Maybe those are the places you need to start. And this is, we need to break these down, because this is where a lot of diet culture comes into play, specifically with this type of thing, with like exercise or food, because it's very much, well, it doesn't count if I'm not sweating. It doesn't count if I'm not in a gym. It doesn't count if it's, only 20 minutes versus 60 minutes. Respectfully, I call BS on that, because if you do 20 minutes 3 times a week versus forcing yourself to do 60 minutes and it not happening, you're actually getting more movement, you're getting more momentum, you're getting more sustainable change and health benefit from those 320 minutes, right? So we need to really break down those mental barriers too. So not just like the why is this not working, but the mental barriers with doing something differently is really, really important. And that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is finding those sneaky little things and breaking them down and finding a different path, a different alternative. So we need to match the solution to the real barrier. And this is why like root cause work is really, really important, because we can't change a habit if we don't understand it, right? So if you're tired all the time and you don't know why, like we talked about reasons why you might be tired that are very easy to identify. But if you're tired all the time and you don't understand why, then maybe your minerals are low. Maybe you have a sluggish thyroid. There are other things in there that can be really, really helpful with some testing that you can help identify of like the why as well. So I wanted to tie that in there too. Number 3 is going slow and giving yourself grace. So we talked about the going slow with being the tortoise, not the hare, but then also giving yourself grace and releasing that all or nothing mindset. People quit because they expect perfection from themselves. And I hate to tell you, but you're not perfect. No one's perfect with anything. And health is not linear. I started out this episode by saying that health is not linear. There are going to be seasons, and there are going to be messy middles. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, there's going to be times where you need to adjust. It'd be so much easier if life was just like cookie cutter and it's like, okay, here's what my day looks like every single day. And here's when I do this and here's when I do that. And there's no barriers, but like that would be boring. We wouldn't have any fun. If you've ever seen the movie Pleasantville, Tobey Maguire's in there. I think, oh, Reese Witherspoon's in there, which she's my doppelganger. Everyone says I look and sound like Reese Witherspoon. So if you agree, drop a comment or send me a message because that's something I get. I never saw that. And then I get so much feedback from random people about that. But anyways, but Pleasantville is all about this like perfect little town that's in black and white, and everything's regimented. Everything is like perfect every single day. But then like they realize they're stuck in this like endless cycle of like nothingness, no real relationships, no real emotions, no real feelings. It's just dull until color comes into the picture, and then they start to recognize like there's more to life than just the regimented day to day. So knowing that, this is also an expectation for yourself of knowing you're not going to be perfect. So if you set a goal and you don't meet it, or you met it 75% of the way, instead of berating yourself, instead of getting mad at yourself, instead of getting down on yourself and quitting, get curious. Go back to point number 1 and number 2. Was this a realistic goal to begin with? Do I need to alter this? Do I need to adjust this? What barriers came up? Problem solve. Problem solve this versus quitting. Adjust versus quitting. Give yourself grace and know that you're not perfect and you're doing something new and you're doing something hard. And it's going to take time, right? This is why I forget the exact stat, but like most people stop their New Year's resolutions by like February or like mid-January or something. And it's, again, all of these things tie back into it. If people gave themselves more grace and problem solved and just got back on the bandwagon, and maybe you need to alter your bandwagon. Maybe it's not the same bandwagon you're getting back on. That's important. So I want to give you a couple client examples here that are relevant. So I have a client who I've worked with her for, we're coming up on 8 months together. She's going to graduate soon, which is really exciting. And we successfully transitioned her off of birth control. Her skin has been better. Her period's been better. You know, she has more energy, better sleep. Things are going really well. She traveled to a different country for a couple months, came back, and upon coming back, she's been go, go, go. She's been slacking a little bit on her nutrition. She hasn't been fueling herself properly. She's been slacking on her mineral mocktails a little bit because she's been go, go, go. And she messaged me and she's like, hey, my breakouts are coming back. This past period's been more painful than it has been since coming off birth control and working with you. I'm like, what's going on? So instead of judging that or freaking out and being like, holy crap, oh no, what's happening? I'm going back, like blah, blah, what our mind does, because our mind goes to the worst case scenario. She properly reached out for support. Preview for point number 3 or tip number 3, or I'm sorry, 4. She reached out to support from me, from an expert, and we talked through it. We're like, why could this be happening? So we identified the reasons why she, why these symptoms were happening. Her body is communicating with her. When she is not properly nourished, properly taking care of herself, her symptoms are acne around her cheeks and more cramping in her periods. So we quickly identified she's been go, go, go. She's been more stressed and more, busy than normal. And she's been underfueling and skimping on her minerals. And so all of those things compounded her body is basically showing us like, hey, no girl, like get back to this. Make sure you're slowing down. Make sure you're eating enough. Make for sure that you're getting those mocktails in. So her and I strategized, okay, like let's go back to the foundations. Like we know your body responds well when we are doing these things. We've had success with this in the past. Let's talk about these barriers and let's slowly start working back up to getting those 2 mineral mocktails in per day versus 1. Let's slowly work back up to, here's how we're going to incorporate more snacks in that you've been skipping, or get that lunch in that you've been skipping when you go to your boyfriend's house, for example. And those are the things that we're looking at. So go slow, embrace the messy middle, get curious, and remember there's going to be ups and downs, and that doesn't mean you failed. It just means we need to fine tune and figure out how do we get back with consistency. Your body wants to function optimally. It just needs your input, and you need to make for sure that you're giving it what it needs. And last but not least, point number 4 is utilizing support. You do not have to do this alone. In fact, I encourage you not to do this alone, because this is another reason why this is another missing piece for so many women, is that we're conditioned to handle everything ourselves. Home, work, kids, our health. But health is not, just a one size fits all. And a lot of times if you're not in Pleasantville, which is a great movie, I highly recommend watching it. But if you're not living in Pleasantville where everything's cookie cutter and the same old, you oftentimes you're juggling so many things, you need support. And for example, like hormone healing often requires support because you need accountability to do the things. You need clarity through the functional labs and the customized plan. You need someone who sees your blind spots. And you need someone to simplify the process so you stop drowning in information and Googling and chat GPTing and TikToking. You need a streamlined plan and you need that support. So this could look like expert support, reaching out to a professional and outsourcing a professional to help save you time, reduce overwhelm, and ensuring you're not wasting months doing the wrong things. Instead of spending hours Googling how to stop birth control without acne or trial and erroring it with supplements, clients come to me and I give them a step-by-step plan of how to stop birth control without their acne coming back. Functional labs that give them clarity of what imbalances are from birth control and could lead to acne when they stop. Accountability with regular check-in points. And structure with a plan that evolves as their health evolves. And confidence knowing that they're doing the right things. So this lets them stop guessing and finally make progress that sticks. This could also be personal support. So this could be involving your partner, your friend, your family in your goals. So for example, going back to if you want to walk 3 times a week, ask your partner if they want to join you to make it more enjoyable and to add some built-in accountability. Maybe they need that too. Or ask them to take, to pick up the morning routine or to pick up the kids so that you can incorporate that walk into your day so that you have capacity to make it happen. If you want to start eating breakfast because it's something you typically skip, maybe you sit down with them every single week and you plan out your breakfast for the week, or you do some meal prepping together. It's not a weakness to ask for support. It's actually a strength to be able to utilize someone else and creating an environment where you actually succeed. So I want to encourage you to think about, what's your support system look like? Who could this be? And it doesn't have to be someone physical too. It doesn't have to be someone living with you. I have lots of clients who utilize friends and they text or they, FaceTime, or they check in every couple of weeks or whatever with them, or they utilize, I'm all virtual. So if it's professional working with me, we check in through chat, we check in through one-on-one sessions. We celebrate all those wins and all those barriers. We kind of break those down and talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and we problem solve together. So you aren't meant to white knuckle your way into health. And community plus guidance is going to make it so much faster, so much smoother, and much more sustainable to reach your goals. So those are my top 4 tips. So to recap, number 1 is setting realistic expectations, starting where you are at, not where you think you should be. Number 2, identifying how you'll get there, aka breaking down barriers. 3, go slow and give yourself grace. Reduce or eliminate that all or nothing mentality. And number 4, utilize support, professional, interpersonal, whatever that is. You don't have to do it alone. I wanted to share with you my New Year's resolution. And I'm usually one of those people that cringes at New Year's resolutions, especially as someone who used to work in the eating disorder space, because, a lot of times it's weight focused, and that's, for me, that can become very disordered for a lot of clients and cringy. So I used to stray away from this, but I do have New Year's goals, and I think it's, helpful to set goals and intentions and to continuously work on feeling your best and improving and, making yourself as happy as you can be. So my New Year's intentions, goals, resolutions, whatever you want to call them, I'm not stuck on one or the other, is I'm going to go into this year with stronger boundaries for my mental well-being. And I've really improved upon this. I've had to improve upon this, just in starting my own business and juggling that and growing my business and all the things that come with that, as well as being a human outside of my business. My Jared always jokes, he's like, your business is your life. And I'm like, kind of, but I love it. So it's not an issue. And And I've really had to set boundaries to make for sure that I have other things outside of work that I enjoy. And, it's not good for your work to be like your entire life, even if you enjoy it. So my New Year's resolution is to really set boundaries in my life to protect my mental well-being. And I don't know how else to say this, but it's almost like being appropriately more selfish, if that makes sense. And I don't like the word selfish because, for example, if people say like, I don't want kids because I'm just too selfish. I'm like, well, you can also just not want kids and not be selfish. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm in that boat. I don't know if I want kids, and I don't think it's because I'm too selfish. I just don't know if I want that for my life, and that's okay. But in this respect, it's like I always think about other people before I think about myself, and that oftentimes comes to my detriment. I'm very much a recovering people pleaser. And so my goals in setting more boundaries for myself is to protect my mental health and to really work on my people pleasing, because I am a very empathetic person and I care so much about other people and other animals, and it can just really be taxing when you take all of that on and when you're constantly thinking about other people. And so I just need to keep that in check and remind myself, if it's in my business, like this is a business, and I need to set boundaries with like certain things. And also maybe it's with the volunteer stuff that I do with helping dogs. There's just so many horror stories out there of animals who have been mistreated and abused, and I want to save them all, and I can't. And I tend to, when I start getting in that Facebook group and see all these stories and all these animals in need, I just, my heart sinks, my stomach sinks, I cry, I can't eat. It really impacts me. And so I need to know when it's appropriate to be aware that these things are happening, do what I can do, and then also know when I need to take some time off of Facebook and not looking at their group for my mental health. So it's not being more selfish. It's just really being aware of my mental capacity and where I'm at and respecting that and not taking everything on. And, I truly believe that. I hate when people say like you can't save everyone or you can't save every dog, like, because it's like, well, with that mentality, of course not. But if everyone did one little thing to make someone's life better or to save one animal or to help in some way, our world would be so much better. And there's just too many people who have that mentality of like, oh, well, you can't do anything. And well, that's why other people like me overextend themselves to try and, save people or save animals. And it comes to a detriment to ourselves and our mental health. So my goal this year is just to really be mindful of that. I've made a lot of strides in that, and it's an ever evolving thing. So that's my New Year's resolution goal. So I would love if you listen to this episode wherever you're listening, just leave like a comment of like what your goal is, what's your resolution, or what's your intention for the year, or just like a takeaway from this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, drop a comment. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, send me a message on Instagram at Nourish by Tay, or send me an email, and I really want to support you in that. And I want us to cheer each other on. So I hope that this episode was really helpful. If you did find it helpful, maybe it's a good idea to send to another woman in your life who's maybe doing a New Year's resolution and maybe could use some of these tips. Again, like, share, leave a review. It means so much to me. And I am wishing all of you a prosperous, healthy, balanced 2026. And if you need any support with your hormone healing journey, with your breakup with birth control journey, you know where to find me. I'd be happy to connect with you. Until next time, stay nourished.